Day 3. No, is it? Of the August 98 10-day retreat in Springwater. I haven't said yet that in relating some things that happen in meetings, what people say, I cannot remember verbatim what was said. Very difficult sometimes to remember the wording. And also it so happens that usually many different people bring up very similar concerns. So it all merges in the mind and a new question emerges, which may not be precisely what you asked, which doesn't mean that you were not understood. Also, if there's ever anything you bring up in a meeting that you do not wish to surface in a talk, of course I would never mention names, then please let me know and I will try to leave that out. So what did we talk about last night in the group? Someone started out saying one has been coming to these retreats for many years and would love to find peace and quiet, and instead what reveals itself in sitting down day 1, day 2 is so many thoughts, such turbulence, commotion of thinking, and all that goes with thinking, feeling, emoting, associating, remembering, and so forth. Constant commotion that will not slow down, even though one would want it to slow down. I don't want to sit with all of these thoughts we feel. I don't want to be concerned with them. I want to be empty of thoughts so I can enjoy the peace and quiet. Someone else mentioned that she found a good term for what goes on. It's her home entertainment center, she said. Movies upon movies. And she added, absorption in those movies, no awareness, no car. That's locked out. So then, inevitably, a question arises. Can I do something about this? Or rather, what am I to do about it? Because I don't like this. I want it to go away. We're all familiar with these thoughts, aren't we? With the thoughts and the reactions to the thoughts. And then maybe another reaction, remembering I ought not react. In the work of this moment, should be no reaction. think we asked that yesterday. Why is it so difficult to just let be what is going on? Because at the time of absorption in the home movies, there is no awareness anyway, so therefore no judgment. But a moment of waking up, coming to, and doesn't the judgment set in right away? Putting oneself down, putting others up. Statements about oneself of wasting the time. And this perennial why after so many retreats, and on and on and on. It's another home video about myself. Not doing well, I ought to be doing better. I'm hopeless. Maybe here and there a glimpse, but I actually don't find it difficult to just let things be. I don't know why I don't find it difficult. It happens quite naturally. Maybe from many, many years of watching and learning about oneself and about this mind, which is so restless, so turbulent, so fickle, so up on itself or down on itself. Watching it year in, year out, decade in, decade out, and learning about it in a new way, not in the old way of condemning or praising, accepting or rejecting, but beholding, seeing, awareing what is going on in a human being like you and me. And maybe this stillness that we're looking for in the mind, and which the mind does not supply us, it's restless. It figures things out or looks for stuff. It is addicted. It is, somebody put it, like a magnet. It goes toward things that cause anger or pain or fear. In this mind, we're looking for stillness with this mind, in this mind, through this mind. And that's a totally erroneous, false path. It leads nowhere except to more mind stuff, tumbling around. Maybe this peace and quiet and space that we're yearning for starts with watching the mind spaciously, quietly. Withholding the judgment that is about to pop up or has just popped out, but not going with it, seeing it and leaving it alone. Can we start freshly every moment that we come to, that there has been turbulence, there has been absorption, there has been pleasure hunting or fear hunting? See it and let it be. Leave it alone. In a quiet awareing that is unable, incapable of blocking out the hum of the insects and the feel of the breathing. Sensations throughout the body. This is an abstract thing to say, sensations, but we're talking with each other. I couldn't hold a talk if there weren't these abstractions like sensations and the body. Let's go into it for a moment. This whole body is nothing but sensations and tinglings and humming and puffing and motoring and breathing and remembering and emoting with the memory. undefined, unlimitable by definition. So, waking up for a moment, I don't know how well we wake up. Most of the time we don't wake up. We go right on dreaming. Just take another dream train. Change dream trains. In the station that's there. A station is stationary. It doesn't move. It's there. That's the listening. That's the awareing. But the mind goes from one train to another, moving about. Does it sound judgmental? Often the emphasis or intensity or passion with which I talk evokes feelings that I'm talking for or against. It's too bad because I'm not. How could there be for or against something that is so, that is happening in the mind, in the body? It's the conditioned response that says this is good, that is bad. But beholding it, awareing it, is not conditioned. It has no response. It just illuminates the responses that come from the mind, which is conditioned by the past, thoroughly. So, please, when the impression comes up that Toni's condemning something or the opposite of what she says must be the good thing, that's also what the brain is very skilled in. Having the feeling this is something bad, she says this is bad, so the opposite of it must be good, or the other way around. This is not the content of this talk. This is the machinations of the brain, of the listener. And please call me on it. Not perfect. Maybe there's some judging going on. Let's look at it. I'm open to it. Whether we can behold things without judgment. In previous days we've talked about getting with it, be with something, and we've talked about, what was it, entering fear? Did we talk about that, or was it last retreat? Entering fear so vulnerably, so unprotectedly, unarmored. So there's just this, just what's going on, and no one who is suffering from it. That's the idea. I'm suffering from this fear. Poor me. That's thought and idea. But something rumbles in the solar plexus and wherever all it's felt throughout the body. Tension, pain in the intestines, heart pumping. To feel it out, to enter into it. That's what we talked about yesterday. Today we're saying, let it be. Let it be. We felt it out. We've gone through the whole thing. We've asked questions about it and received answers and went deeper, coming to sort of the bottom line. There's fear with this conditioned consciousness, inevitably. It's programmed right into it. Because this consciousness thinks itself apart. And thinking oneself apart inevitably brings fear. Like a little child that has lost their mother. Suddenly realizing, where is she? And crying. something arising, fear or anger. Maybe it beckons to be looked at again. And sometimes we have to look at something for 10 years. As once one person told me, she used to come to retreat, at first at the Zen center, then in the camp. For 3 years we were in a camp along a beautiful lake, Canandaigua. There was a room in which we had a meeting, and a little hut in which we had meetings, and a little hut in which people were waiting. And there was a wood stove in the waiting hut. And this woman who came regularly to retreats, burning with anger, she said she sat next to that stove and kept it going during the night to burn with it, with her anger. And eventually, after many, many years, 7 or 10, don't remember, she told me it's burnt out. I can't get angry anymore. I've seen it all, but it took a long time of looking. Looking, being with it, questioning it, and throwing one's hands up in despair, and yet not giving up. That's the secret of it, the open secret. Not to give up. To stay with it in a new way, one moment at a time. Not this plaintive desire for forever. I want to be like this forever, clear, balanced, whole. That's what often people say. Why is it that these glimpses come and go so quickly? They're so short. The presence, the wholeness, the freedom, the lack of confinement, and with that lack of fear. Why does it come and go so quickly, so infrequently? And you know, it's the other way around. Thoughts come and go. Quickly, slowly, permanently it seems, but it isn't. What's there is presence, awareness, and this other stuff just tumbling around in it. It only seems that way, that it comes and goes, this presence. So find out more about that, not to take anybody's word for it. Although sometimes a word like this may provide some solace to the despairing mind. And it's better to say, I am aware, or this is presence. Presence is always there. It's better to believe that than to believe in one's hopelessness. I mean, being a hopeless case, that's what I mean. As far as beliefs go, they only go so far, and then they lack something again. Because one belief takes the place of another. We shop around for new beliefs. And at first they seem so gratifying, so healing, restoring. But the mind tumbles around. In what? Where? Now. Can we sense together or aware together that there's presence here right now, beyond the thought about it? It's not that. Sometimes people say, what have you got with the birds or with or with the crickets? What if you were someplace where there were no birds? Well, We have that in the wintertime. All the good old faithful crows, they're always there. Almost always. So it's not the crowing, the cawing. It's not the humming or the breathing. It's the awareness of it all. Not awareness of it, awareness, presence. Are we here together right now, beyond the thought about being together? And to get a feel for the difference about, the difference in thinking about presence, how wonderful it is that we're always present, how good it would be if I was always present. Can you see the tumbling of thoughts about presence and just sitting still a moment? The breathing, the coughing, the humming, grilling. You get to detect the difference. Not that one is good and the other is bad. That's beyond argument. Awareness is this being here. And thinking about it is thinking about it, which is a different mode of being, which one, little by little, over time, gets a real solid feel about what the difference is. So one is not fooled by it, not fooled by thinking. Sometimes. Never say never. This mind and body are such master deceivers. The imagination is amazing what it can create in scenarios and specters, and the body heaving with it. And the body heaving with it lends credibility to what has been thought about, as though that was real. And the only thing that's real is awareing it all at this moment of no judgment, no movement. Let the thoughts move about. Awareness is still. We got into some sort of word confusion last night about these words of consciousness, thinking, and awareness. Not that I'm laying down the law how these words should be used. Anybody is free to use a word in whatever way they find is most appropriate, but is it just abstract, or is it tied down to directness, direct experiencing or seeing? So the words that I'm using here are not immutable, but for us to understand each other, at least at times, clearly, we need to have the same use of the word, the same meaning for it, or else we misunderstand each other and may get into argument, which is not what we did last night. Get into argument, which is just because you and me see a different meaning to a word. We may not be arguing about different things, just using different words for the same thing. I remember one time going to Ojai to hear Krishnamurti, and there was the people, the listeners, they were abuzz. A new book had come out called Truth and Actuality, starting with dialogues between Krishnamurti and David Bohm. And the buzz and the amazement among the people was that Krishnamurti and Bohm changed the meaning of the word reality. It had until now had meant the absolute. That's what we usually use the word as, meaning the absolute, the immutable, that which is beyond, dependent on nothing. And now he was using the word reality as that which is created by thought. All that's created by thought is a reality. And that was a marvelous exercise. Rather than getting excited over it, to move with a new word and not lose one's bearings. So that's just an aside. If you scout around different spiritual teachings or teachers, you will find that different traditions use different words. Like in the Advaita or Hindu tradition, the word self denotes the absolute. Because these are all translations. Self with a capital S. Although in Buddhism there's also a precedent for using I think Shunryu Suzuki, big self and little self. He talks about it in those terms. So to be ever so flexible when you read somebody or hear somebody, to notice the desire to stick with one's definitions and start defending them as though they were part of me, my eyes or ears. Somebody's taking them. No, that is good mind training. Feel oneself into a new use of a word. That's why I do not insist on these terms as anything absolute. But again, for communication's sake, let's clarify what I mean by consciousness. Because often it is used interchangeably with awareness. And I find it's very helpful to differentiate consciousness from awareness. Not just intellectually, but experientially. Consciousness referring to all the mind thinks about and remembers and associates and anticipates with me at the center. That's why we speak of self-consciousness. Thinking about myself and my objects, the things that are mine that I identify with or that thought identifies with. This whole massive, I wonder whether it's infinite, whether consciousness is infinite, always something addable to it. This whole mass of stuff made of thinking and remembering and experiencing and naming and knowing and conceiving, reacting, agitating, fearing, desiring, loving and hating. Krishnamurti used to put it very succinctly. He said, consciousness is its content. The content of consciousness is consciousness. Without content, there is no consciousness. That makes sense, doesn't it? Does it? Have to think about something, and then we say, I'm conscious of that. But when there is nothing to be conscious of, meaning thinking about it, then there is no consciousness. Then what is left when there's no consciousness? When the content is at ease. And I'll say later, not to now hope for a state when there's no consciousness. This is nonsense. I'm partly defining my terms. Consciousness can be awared. There can be awareness of thinking. Can't there? I think we can agree on that. All of us here. That it is possible to be aware that a thought just zoomed through the mind, inciting the rest of the organism to anger, fear, pleasure, tension, resistance. That can be aware, can't it? It can also be thought about. Thinking about oneself is different from awareness of thinking about myself. Is that too complicated? Thinking about myself, how good I am, or how terrible I am, how hopeless I am, or how hopeful I am. That's thinking about myself. And then suddenly awareness that there is thinking about myself going on. All kinds of physical accompaniment. Positive energies, negative energies. Inflation or deflation. I think great about myself is like an energy inflation. Think bad about myself, there's a deflation. And suddenly this can all be awared. Not caught up in it anymore, but seen that this is what is taking place or has just taken place. I'm probably talking much too fast, too much at a time. You can get the tape. And we have meetings left. Awareness is not consciousness. It sheds light on consciousness. It illuminates. It makes it appear as it is. Aware of thinking about myself, thinking about the world. Aware of the emotions that are triggered by thinking about myself. Or, for moments at a time, aware of nothing. Just the hum of the cicadas. And the breathing and humming of this here. Talking about it, putting this into words, which is what happens in a talk, does in no way need to disturb this open awareness. That's the beauty of it. This is why talks are possible. Talking out of awareness is possible, because talking need not fragment or destroy, or seemingly destroy, awareness. It is there. Immutable. And the words just flow. Maybe we meet each other. Do we meet each other in the words? Or do we meet each other wordlessly? In spite of the words? Or maybe some help from the words and we meet directly? Immediately, no mediation necessary. Just, I won't say it. So in awareness, in presence, which is here right now, a thought can arise and be seen for a thought. And used to explain, to describe. Not used for self-aggrandizement. Then things become fragile, contracting, narrowing. Because then there comes a purpose for this center of consciousness, and that comes into play. I need to be thought of well, or do they like me or do they hate me? Will I get praise? I remember I used to do some singing in the past. The whole thing, in a way, when I look back on it, was an ordeal. That's how, even though at the time I didn't grant this to myself, incredible butterflies before the performance, trying to suck on a cherry pit to have saliva there to sing so the throat wouldn't conk out from dryness. All kinds of devices you use. Always wondering whether that voice would start at the start of a song. And at times, once the music was flowing, then it didn't seem to be a problem anymore, because there was the flowing music and interpretation of it, or living the song, took the place of self-consciousness. It sort of swept it away. But then, the end of the performance, what will they say? Will they like it? Will they gush all over me? Incredible neediness and expectation and uncertainty. How did this come up? Oh, self-consciousness, yeah. Yeah, the moment while you're singing, the moment you think, am I doing this well? Am I doing it as well as I should, or as so-and-so does? Or so-and-so does so much better if you're singing a duet or a quartet. Self-consciousness is the destroyer of openness. With its motives to be good and its fear to be bad, and its uncertainty about both. That's why it's such an absolute miracle that it's possible to sit in front of people and start a talk and the voice is there. It's not feared for. It's not self-consciousness. An interesting thought. If it had been like this, when I used to sing, maybe I would have never gotten into this. Because then I would have been a good singer. So much for the personal. A good friend of mine once said, you say too many personal things in your talks. I said, well, people like it. She said, never mind what people like. So, a little slippage here. Are we together? Here? Right now? We will end here for today.